again, everyone. Elise Gordon, Board President of Sea Glass Theater Company, here to continue our Spotlight series. Today, I'm proud to introduce the phenomenal soprano and multifaceted artist, Helen Hassinger. And why don't you tell me a little bit about where you grew up and how you got the music bug?
Yes. So I grew up in La Crosse, Wisconsin. My mom was a chemistry professor at a university there, Viterbo University. And as part of a sort of I guess, a benefit for some of the employees, they gave discounted lessons to children of staff and faculty. So, which was essentially discounted babysitting for me at the age of 5. So I would kind of go over to from my mom's chemistry lab and go over to the music department and take violin lessons at the age of 5, little Suzuki violin lessons. And yeah, I had a couple of really, really great violin teachers growing up. And then I was in the La Crosse Girls Chorus, which was also associated with the university there. And that's sort of how I started singing. And then eventually, high school, got more into choirs and singing, actually taking classical voice lessons and really getting a little more formal training. And then I decided to go to St. Olaf College and pursue music there, which was really, really fun. And it led me all the way out here. It's been a crazy, crazy life for sure.
Now, is St. Olaf in Wisconsin or Minnesota?
St. Olaf is in Northfield, Minnesota. So so it's a little tiny Lutheran school. They're pretty well known for the St. Olaf Choir. They do, tours every year, with the exception of this year, obviously. But I was actually in the orchestra all 4 years, and so that was my musical experience there. I sort of was in some of the operas and and was a voice major, but I was in the orchestra as my ensemble.
So interesting that you had such a strong capability in both the violin and your voice. I mean, you still balance those two equally, or are you more focused on your voice? How did that all evolve?
Definitely focus more on my voice now, simply because, violin, especially, or most instruments, when it got to a certain level, you really had to be practicing 4 or 5 hours a day. And I just had to either choose one or the other. And I found that my interests more closely linked to singing and all the aspects involved in singing and doing theatrical productions and operatic productions. So that's sort of how I ended up going more in that direction. But I still play, still try to practice. I got back into doing scales, playing scales during the pandemic. That was rough. It's like, oh no, I do not remember how to play these scales. My teacher would be very disappointed in me. But it has been a nice skill to carry on throughout my life. And especially like with this pandemic, people have been finding alternative ways to collaborate and make music. And it's been great to have that extra skill to, when I was performing with one person, I just was able to pull out my violin and do a little accompaniment because we didn't have a piano and we were out on the sidewalk. But we were still able to perform and have some background music, so to speak. And obviously, it's been so fun to play violin with Sea Glass. I've played on a couple of the concerts, and it's just, for me, it's a real joy that I still get to do that in a professional capacity, and just play that high level music, especially with someone like Matthew, and then with someone like Patrice singing along. It's just really, it's really great. So
Yeah.
I am a poor wayfaring stranger. I am just
Himself was dead, or better far instead, on the rocky road, with Dublin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out ahead and turn it down the rocky road, all the way to Dublin, whack the lolly ride.
Now, you also had an interesting stretch in Minneapolis. You were a sales analyst in a corporate environment for a while before you came to Boston, right? I mean, that must have been like going from Mars back to Earth. I mean, what was that like to just make that switch?
Oh, it was definitely rough. I was, going to a corporate job every day and doing that career path. And then next thing I know, I was in Boston and I was a student eating ramen for dinner again. So it was definitely a shift. But again, looking back, the reason I decided to make that move was because I really, really loved singing and really loved performing. And I wanted to see where that jump would lead, see where that path would lead. And so far, I've had a lot of experiences that I wouldn't have had otherwise if I had just remained in my corporate job in Minneapolis. So I'm thankful I made the switch.
Well, it's a good spot on the resume in case you ever need to leave music.
Exactly. If anyone's looking for, no, I'm just kidding.
How did you get from the Midwest, the upper cold Midwest, to the cold Northeast? How did you land in Boston?
Yes. So when I was after college, when I was living in Minneapolis, I lived in Minneapolis, and I decided I wanted to go to graduate school, and I looked at a few places near in the Midwest, and then I thought, I'll also look at Boston because I had heard a lot about the Opera Institute. I had heard a lot about the school in general, how it was very prestigious and very academic, and that appealed to me. And I also had some friends from undergrad, some violin friends actually, who ended up coming out here to study. And they seemed to love Boston. So I actually went to visit them in Boston, loved the city, thought it was amazing. And so then I applied and got in and thought, yeah, I think I'm going to move to Boston.
Oh, I love it. The rest is history, and we're so glad you're here. Yeah, we're so glad you're here. What have you been doing during your downtime other than your scale practicing? Has there been anything else you've taken up during the pandemic and in your downtime?
I tried cross stitching for a little bit, and I think I got about 10 stitches in and went, this is not for me. I've been hiking a lot. I've been going outside a lot, trying to find nearby places, and I'm training for nearby places that you can, that are within driving distance that are also sort of remote, so that I don't have to run into a bunch of people. So I've sort of been hiking a lot. I also am trying to train for a half marathon.
Wow.
We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, I've been running a lot and baking a lot and hiking a lot. That's about it.
Sounds right.
That's kind of a lot, right? That's kind of a lot.
That is a lot. That's a lot, is right.
That's a lot.
To sweep me off my feet.
Now tell us a little bit about what you think is your most memorable performance.
Whew, yeah. There are so many memorable performances, obviously, I think every show you do, there are always special memories tied to each one of those productions. Just because each show you do is with a different group of people, and you always find those moments of joy and those hilarious gaffes that happen during rehearsal, or that one really special moment of singing together, whether it's on stage or just practicing, where you kind of create a bond that you will never forget. I think my most memorable performance was when I did Chautauqua. I was singing Donna Anna in Don Giovanni, and I actually sang with another Sea Glass person, Dennis Schumann, and he's done a couple of Sea Glass performances. And he and I played lovers on stage, and but we were also good friends in real life. And it's really a different experience when you get to go on stage and sing a duet with one of your really close friends and share that moment, not only together, but also with this giant audience, and know that you're really doing justice to the music you're singing as well.
That would hit everybody's heart, both the performers and the audience. That's wonderful. Great,
Yeah.
Great memories.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how about your weirdest gig?
Oh gosh, yes. So weirdest gig. I've had many weird gigs, but I will say, in hindsight, I don't think it's really that weird nowadays. But at the time, I thought, wow, this is really weird. But now I'm like, wow, that was really cool, actually. So when the pandemic first hit, I was in Memphis. I was singing Fior di Legge in Così fan tutte with Opera Memphis. But then obviously the pandemic hit, and so they had to cancel the show. But they still had us for a couple of weeks, and they were like, you're here, let's try to do something if possible. So they said, okay, meet us at this house at this time. And I showed up, and they put me on the back of a trailer and I sang with a microphone to all of these houses, and people coming out of their houses just on their patios on the back of a trailer truck. I sang opera on a trailer truck. So that was a very interesting gig, but in hindsight, like, wow, that really kind of worked out well, because it was socially distant, and we still got to perform the show a little bit in, at least aspects of the show for people. And, it was a safe and really fun way to get the community's attention on the opera and on the opera community, and also the fact that the opera and the troubles that, the opera community was about to face, looking ahead at this pandemic. So it was really cool.
And really early to have that, to figure that out. You have some brilliant people in Memphis.
Oh yeah. They were right on it like that. I couldn't believe it.
Amazing.
I think how that ended up happening is they have a parade every year, and they normally perform in the parade. So they just happen to have this essentially parade float ready to go. And they thought, well, we're not having a parade, but there's no reason we can't put the singers on the back of the truck and just have them sing anyways. So it was really cool. It actually
Brilliant.
got views on Facebook, and really brought some attention to the struggles and sort of the innovative ways that the opera community was trying to deal with this pandemic and performing virtually.
So what music do you listen to when it's not opera?
Oh man, I really love bluegrass. Love bluegrass. Love Patsy Cline. She's like my favorite non-classical singer. Uh, yeah, lots of bluegrass. And I've been trying to learn a little bluegrass as well on the violin. It hasn't been going so well yet, but we'll get there eventually.
Well, you'll get the, oh yeah, I know you'll get there. A side hustle, something that you do to earn
Pay
a
the
little extra? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I actually work at Boston University. I work in a study abroad office, which has also been fascinating during this pandemic because of course traveling has been so difficult and leaving the country is more or less impossible. So, to work with students who are trying to either leave the US or come back into the US has been really interesting too. So yeah, that's what I do. As sort of my side hustle, I work at Boston University on staff there, working with international students and helping them get accustomed to Boston University, accustomed to Boston, and sort of welcome them to America for the first time, which for a lot of them, it truly is their first time. So that's a really neat experience for me, and I've really enjoyed working there so far. So
That's awesome. Really awesome. Okay, so one of the things when I was going through your bio and reading about all the things you do, you sing, you play the violin. We already talked about those two a little bit. You get rave reviews on your acting skills, and you also have on-stage combat as a skill. So you are this multi-talented, multifaceted. How did you figure out how to do all that stuff, or do you just need to be busy all the time?
So honestly, I think I have to be busy all the time. That's probably fair. I really enjoy being busy. But also, especially with stage combat, and dancing and all of that stuff, I actually got into opera because I really loved musical theater and I loved performing in that context, which of course you have to dance in musical theater a lot. And when I started doing opera, then I realized, oh, well, I'm not necessarily doing the Charleston on stage or anything like that, but I felt like bringing that dance training to the stage really helped with telling the story. And then my first year at BU, I took, I believe it's called opera workshop. It's an opera course. It's an opera course. And we did a course on stage combat. And we essentially learned how to slap people in the face without actually slapping them in the face, how to fall, which I was very grateful for the falling because I am klutzy and I was like, okay, now I know how to fall and not injure myself, which I will use this skill every day of my life. So, yeah, we learned how to do kicks. We learned how to do chokes on stage. And at the time I thought, is this really going to be useful for me? How many times do people get kicked in opera or choked in opera? Really? And then I was like, oh, wait, no, in like every opera, basically. In every opera, someone gets stabbed, choked, kicked. There's a lot of violence, it turns out. So I really got into stage combat and just really started learning about that a little bit more and trying to make the productions I was in use that training as much as I possibly could. And I'm pretty positive I've used it in every show I've been in, whether even for something as simple as, getting on your knees. There is an athletic and safe way to do it that you may think isn't worth it at the time. Oh, my knees are fine. Oh, I don't need to wear knee pads. But it's sort of like stretching after running. There's a reason people stretch after running. It's because you're trying to avoid injury. And I think stage combat is something that a lot of actors really could learn a lot from, and a lot of singers can learn a lot from too. Just generally speaking, keeping our bodies healthy, because our body is our instrument.
Indeed. That sounds like so much fun to learn. I'm beyond where I can learn all that now. I just pray I don't hurt myself when I fall down. Long performance road ahead of you, Helen. I know you do. And on that note, do you have a dream role and a dream venue you'd like to perform it in?
Ooh. So, as silly as this is, I would love to perform. Susanna from Carlisle Floyd's opera. That is like an amazing role. I love that show. I just think it's gorgeous, and it's just an amazing American work. And in regards to where I would want to perform it, I know this is silly, but I would love to perform it in my hometown someplace, back in Wisconsin. I just think it would be so cool to perform something that I really love and have worked on for a long time in front of, friends and family, and sort of my former teachers and anyone that's sort of helped me get to where I am today.
Well, now that it's out in the universe, it's going to happen for you. You just keep pushing it out there. It's going to come back to you.
Exactly.